Hello there, welcome to my YouTube channel Saint Nightingale. In this tutorial video, I'm going to be showing you how I sewed this 3-part basque corset dress. Let's go. So first of all, what I did was to spread my brown paper on the floor and then take out 1 inch from the top and from the side and draw out a straight line. The reason I'm doing this is so that I can create my, I'll call it edges, or the work area where I'll be drafting on my pattern. So I won't be extending my pattern out of these lines that I've created at the top and at the bottom. Afterwards, I went on to draft out the full length of the corset that I will be making. So I started from that start line above and marked out 21 inches. So the length of my corset is 21 inches. I picked up my short ruler and I connected the lines. So after connecting the lines, I went on to further draft my shoulder to nipple point, which is 10 inches. After putting the dots across, I picked up my long ruler and drew out a straight line on that, or on the dots that I've created, to mark out my nipple point. So I'll just label it nipple point. Afterwards, I went on to mark my under bust point. My under bust point is 12.5 inches. So I placed the measuring tape again and marked out 12.5 inches with the long ruler, connected the dots and then labeled it under bust UB. Alright, the next thing I did was to secure my waist measurement. So shoulder to waistline is 15 inches. So I picked up my long ruler again, connected the lines and labeled WL, which is the waistline. So we're done labeling the nipple points, under bust points and waistline. And the next thing for me is to measure my neck measurement, which is 3 inches upwards and downwards. I took my curve ruler and measured that. My back measurement is 7 inches, so I just placed my measuring tape and marked out 7 inches from the up down. Then I went on to mark my over bust point. My over bust point is 8 inches, which is where I want the corset to start from. So 8 inches across, and then I picked up my long ruler again, measured the straight line and labeled OBP. So we're done with this now. The next thing for me to now do is to secure my armhole. I know I won't be making use of this measurement upwards, just so that we can just have a defined bodice first before we move over to creating the pattern for the corset. So I've done my shoulder slope. I'm doing my armhole slope as well. I'm using my curve ruler to secure that, and then I'll just draw the lines across. So we're done with this armhole. Now let's move over to defining the corset pattern. So first off, what I did was to place my measuring tape on the straight lines going across to mark my nipple to nipple points, which is 3.5 inches. So I've marked that on the under bust point, the nipple points, the under bust points, and the waistline, as well as the hip line. And I'll just pick my long ruler again and connect the lines from the over bust point downwards. I just picked my measuring tape again to just confirm that the measurements that I marked on the lines are accurate. After doing that, I now picked up my ruler again to just draw that straight line. So this is defined. So now let's take out 1 inch on the left and on the right on that straight line by the point where we have the under bust and where we have the over bust point. So 1 inch away from the left and the right. The same thing applies to the waistline and the hip line. But then before doing that, I picked up my curve ruler to create the curve for the cups. So I'm doing that nipple point downwards and nipple point upwards. So that's our point now. So now I will just mark out 1 inch on the hip line, but I won't be using my marker. I'll be using my pencil because this line is not useful to me. I'm just doing this so that I can see the line, but you understand why I did that with a pencil later on. Then I went on to mark 1/2 inch on that line, then proceeded to marking out my first cup. So I went to that point and marked the midpoint of that of that part under the armhole, placed my curve ruler and I connected the dots that I've made on the midpoint of that point downwards, and that's the first cup. Then I went in again, I marked 1/2 inch on that side of the line where you have the overbust points, and placed my curve ruler and connected the dots from the underbust points to the 1/2 inch measurement that I marked on that overbust line, and that's it. So now let's create our curve for the 3 parts. Remember, we're not doing a 2-part corset, we're doing a 3-part corset. So the 3rd part is what I'm marking now, which is 1/2 inch on the line, from the start line over bust points. But on that midpoint, I'm going to be using 2 inches and not 1.5 inches. So first of all, I marked 1.5 inches, then went upwards by 1/2 inch, and then marked my 2 inches for the midpoint. So I will now be connecting the dots from A to point B to point C, which is what you can see me doing now to create my 3-part corset. Then I'm going to go up again and trace it to connect to that 1/2 inch, and then downwards back again to where I marked my 1.5. So remember, 1.5 on the edges and 2 inches on the midpoint, and there's my 3-part corset. So I will now go ahead to label 1, 2, 3. So when I'm placing on the fabric to duplicate or replicate, I have it accurately covered. Now let's go back downwards to mark the dot line, the parts where I will be inserting my my boning stick, right? So I went on to make divisions on my will do calculations on my white paper, which is what I'm doing now, or my jotter, and I will now be replicating the calculations based on my measurements on the brown paper. So first off, let's proceed. I went downwards. I didn't label that hip line, so I went downwards to label that. Then I went to that line and took out 1.5 inches, placed my short ruler from that point 1 downwards and drew a slanting line. Then I went on again and took out 1 inch from that side and drew out another straight line upwards. Then I went in again by 2 inches and 1/2 inch from that side of the armhole and drew out a straight line downwards. So from that point downwards, 1/2 inch up and 2 inches downwards, and drew a straight line. Then I picked my marker and marked the area that I won't be needing, so you understand the part that is going out of this pattern. The other points that I just marked now, I won't be needing that part. I won't be by the time it's joined together, it will just be 1/2 inch joining allowance. So now what I'm trying to do is to calculate my bust measurement and to add 4 inches to the allowance. So I will add 2 inches back to my original bust measurement, which is 34 inches, so that's 36 inches, and another 2 inches to give me 38 inches. Same thing with the waist. The waist is 24 inches, so I added 4 inches back to this measurement to get 28 inches. Same thing for the hip measurement, which is 34 inches. I added 4 inches to give me 38 inches overall. So that's what I'm doing on this lines, that I'm going to take my ruler to connect the lines or connect the dots from the overbust point to the waistline and then to the hip line. So after doing this, I went in by 5.5 inches from the hip curve, that's it there, and then used my curve ruler to connect the curve upwards towards the waistline. I'll move my body away so you can see what I'm doing. So from that point downwards, from the waistline, I drew out a curve which is 5.5 inches away from the right side, and there you have it. For me to have that pattern that you had seen at the beginning of this video, I'm also going to take out 1.5 inches from that side line, from the hip line, so that it gives me a curve downwards, but then I will show you how I did that. So we're done with this now. I'm just going to pick up my scissors now and trace out the pattern. So before completing the cut, I remember I'd mentioned that I'm going to be making a slope just by that point where we have the curve by the hip line. So I just placed things to just put the brown paper, make the brown paper flattened down so that I can create this pattern. I didn't remember to include this. It was when I looked at my sketch I realized that I had not imputed the curve just by that part. So I'm just going to be doing that now. So I picked up my measuring tape, and from that point I measured the part where the curve would be stopping, and I just marked, which is the midpoint of that point. Then I went upwards and marked out half an inch from that point as well. And then I will now remove that long ruler from that edge and then take out 1.5 inches from that side, as you can see me doing now, and then pick up my curve ruler and implement. So I'm just going to pick up my ruler again, or rather scissors, and just follow the pattern and trim it out. So I removed this stuff and shaded the area that you can see now, and then just trimmed it out as well. So for the back bodice, I already have my edges laid. I mean the upper part and the left side. I also have my markings done: the over bust line, the under bust line, the waistline, and then the hip line. So I'm just going to be plotting my pattern here now. I'm just going to be taking out 2 inches from the waistline for my dart, and that's it. So using my nipple to nipple measurement 3.5, I went on these various lines across it from the over bust line, under bust line, and waistline, as well as hip line, and then took my long ruler and drew a straight line from that point that I've marked. Remember, I used my nipple to nipple measurement for this line. Then I went in by 1 inch on the waistline on both sides of the line, on the left and the right, which give me about 2 inches eventually. Then picked up my short ruler and drew a straight line from the over bust line downwards, just like you can see in this video, and another one from the waistline to the hip line. Afterwards, I went on to get my bust measurement, my waist measurement, and my hip measurement, adding 4 inches to the allowance, just like I did in the front part, and then drew or connected the lines across the markings that I have made. Then I went in again by 5.5 inches. On that hip line, I went in by 1.5 inches and then drew my curve and took out the excess that I'll be needing. Then I went on to just shade the area that I won't be needing as well. But before that, I took out 1.5 inches from that over bust line and drew a straight line downwards to get that slope. And now I'm marking the points that I would not be needing again in this pattern. So I marked my back 1, back 2, and cut out for the back, which is labeled CB, as you can see. So I'm tracing out or cutting out the parts that I'll be needing for the back area. So we're done with the pattern for the back. Now let's proceed to our next assignment. So the next thing we're going to be doing is to place this pattern on the main fabric and cut out. So one thing to note is when cutting this out, you pin with your bobbin pin so it stays firmly, and then you trace out with half an inch sewing allowance on all sides of this, so that when you join, your measurement is still accurate. Some of you might ask me, how did I arrive at the various cuttings that I did for the front part, and for the front part especially. So what I did was use my waist measurements. I divided my waist measurement into two. 24 inches divided by 2 is 12 inches. 12 inches divided by 3 is 4 inches. So that's why I made use of the measurements that I used at the points that I used that. Doing the math, 1.5 times 2, that's 3 inches. 2 times 2 inches times 2, or 2 inches in 2 places, that's 4. Another 2 inches in 2 places, that's another 4. If I add that together, I'll get 11. So my allowance that I put on the side will also cover up for the extra 1 inch that would make the 12 inches complete. You can decide to try out whatever cutting technique that you have, but this is the technique that I used in getting this cutout that I eventually came up with. So now the next thing that we're doing is to cut out the skirt. The skirt does not have a dart. It's a normal straight skirt, or straight skirt, not so pencil. So I marked out the length of the skirt. The length of the skirt that I'll be working with is 34 inches. I'm also factoring in my joining allowance at the top and at the bottom. Then I marked out the waistline, the hip line, and the upper knee line. And then I went on to cloth my waistline 24 inches, my hip line 34 inches, and my upper knee line, which I'll be working with, 32 inches. And I went to mark that out, adding 1.5 inches sewing allowance to the waistline, the hip line, and the upper knee line, and then cut out. Then I placed the material on the back and took out 1.5 inches zip allowance on the left side, drew a straight line across, placed the front part of the fabric on the back part, and then traced that out as well before going ahead to place on the lining material. So the length that I used for the lining material is 30 inches, which takes out 4 inches away from the full length of the skirt. And then I just traced it out and also opened out the parts for the zipper at the back. So let's proceed to the next thing that we'll be cutting. So this part is if you can remember the style that I showed you at the beginning, it had a blouse that was worn first before the corset was worn on top of it. This is a pleated organza material. So I made sure that the lines are facing upwards. So I took out the full length that I'll be working with away from the fabric. I worked with 18 inches long material, so when I turn it in, I'm left with 17 inches. Then I went on to open up the shoulder. The depth of the neck that I first cut out was 4 inches, and then the wideness of the neck as well was 4 inches, but I'm going to be changing this when I flip this over. I'll do that very shortly. So let me just trim out the excess and just make sure that the line is straight. And then the total material that I used was 1 inch. So I just folded the 1 inch material on fold twice so that I can cut the front and the back at the same time. So that's 4 inches away for that part. I flipped it over now. I'm now going to be increasing the depth of the v-neck. The depth of the v-neck that I used was 8 inches, so I marked 8 inches on that point, and then picked up my ruler again from that wideness of the neck to connect it downwards to create my V. So I'm going to be having the same shape at the front and at the back. I'll be turning it with the lining material, the black lining material, so that the closing is, or the finishing is neat. Alright, so we already have this now. I will just trim again the tip of the fabric so that the lines are straight as possible when it's time for me to join together. So we'll go to the machine now and then join together everything that we have cut out. So now I'm on the sewing machine now. For this part, I had ironed the stay on the main part of the fabric, but for the corset area, the cup area rather, the bra cup area, I had ironed out the wadding padding, the hardest one. I had ironed it out on the pattern, and I would now be joining with the machine. That's point 2 and point 3. I'm going to be joining 2 and 3 together for the left and for the right. I'd also labeled the upper flap 1 and 2, so I know which one stays on the left and the one that stays on the right. So what I'm doing now is to slowly join together point 2, part I had marked 2 and 3 when labeling the bust area. So I'm doing that now. Alright, so I opened this up after joining for you to just see the progress that I've made. I'm going to now be opening this up on the machine, or rather on the ironing board, to open up. Let me just come closer to the machine so you see this. So I'm going back to my seat now, and I'm going to be joining this points together. So I'm joining the cup on the cup part, the part labeled 2 and 3 on the part labeled 1, and I'm also doing this across the flap for the left and for the right. I'll go to the ironing board to iron this part out as well. Then let's proceed to the other part of the attire now. So that's our cup. Let's proceed to the next one. So for the main part of the fabric, as you can remember, the pattern created, from the center point I'm going to be joining the first joining, and then I will proceed to join in the next joining. So we already have our first part. I will join the next part, and I'll also do it for the other side. So I'm doing this for the right side. I'll be doing this for the left side as well. Also joining the cutouts. So now I'm going to place the flap and then join, as you can see me doing in this video, and I'll also join the one for the right hand side as well, or rather the left hand side. So I flipped it over and then I joined. Our pattern is gradually coming to shape, but then we need to iron this out. So let's do the back pattern as well. So part labeled B1 and B2 will be joined together for the left side and for the right side, and then the flap as well will be joined. So as you can see, I've joined that part, and I'm now going to join out, or rather add the flap to it. So I'm adding the flap as well to the right side, and I'll be adding the flap as well to the left side once I'm done joining together B1 and B2. So now let's do the same thing that we did for the front part. We're going to replicate the same for the lining. I mean, there's nothing different happening. It's the same method for joining that we'll use to join the lining. I didn't use the usual lining for this fabric. I made use of crepe material to line the damask material. I mean, if you ask me what I used for my main fabric, I used the damask brocade for the main fabric. That's the part that you had seen earlier, the brown material. Then what I used in lining was my crepe material. I used the black crepe material already laced with gum stay, the medium texture, and that's what I'm doing now. So those are the materials I used in lining the corset and the fabric that I used for the lining. The next one we'll be doing is to open up the joining with the steam iron. I'm going to be doing this for every part of the cutout that we have, or the parts that we have. And after doing this, I would be proceeding to the sewing machine now to join the parts together. So as you can see how I'm opening up all the parts that has been joined. I'll flip over again and then press the front part, and that's how to get a very good finishing. So let's go to the machine now. I draw out a straight line on the center point, which will be taking my boning case. I made use of 1/2 inch velvet material. I pinned the center point down with my bobbin pin, so it's easy for me to sew across. I sewed on the very thin sewing side or sewing part of this velvet, and I'm going to be sewing this across all the joinings that I have on this corset. I did that for the center point, so I'm going to be doing this for the remaining joining that I have across the front part of this corset, and as well as the back part that has any joining whatsoever. It's important to do this before placing the cup so that everything sits properly and balances well. And for me to also ensure that I'm drawing on an accurate line, I made sure that the velvet cord is properly placed. It's sitting on the center point of the line, and also used my bobbin pin to also secure it on the fabric so that it's easy for me to sew on a straight line. This is where my boning stick will be passing through. You can see what I'm doing with the side. I'm making sure that it curves first, because it's not a straight line, it's a curved line. So you just make sure, or rather, when you're sewing, just make sure that the velvet properly goes across the line that you have originally done on the fabric. So we're just going to continue this across, and the corset is gradually coming up. I'm moving again to the next line, and I'm sewing downwards, following that very thin line that you can see on the velvet cord. It's also important that you sew accurately, so that eventually your boning stick can pass through the boning case that you have created, and it won't be the spacing will not be too narrow or tiny when doing this. So we're done with this now. We are now going to do the same as well for the back. So I'm just doing my finishing touch for the front, and I will go to the back now and replicate the same as well. So like we did for the front, also the joining that we have there, we're going to place the boning case and then just sew through this. So we're done with the boning case for the back, and let's move to the cup area. So for the bra cup, I just notched 1/2 inch from the tip to the center point of this bra cup. I'll flip it open for you to see how it bounces, so that it's easy for it to sit properly in the cup area. So I'm going to now sew this downwards on the cup area that has the fabric. I'm going to sew this across, and I'm also going to trim the tip part of this cup so that it sits properly in the cup area, in the cup area for the corset. I've trimmed that part out, and I'm going to now do the same for the second. I opened up that part that I sewed so that it's easy for me to sew this bra cup on the fabric. So the same thing I did for the first cup. I'm going to trim the tip of the cup so the measurement aligns properly. The next thing for me to do now is to now place this cup in the hole that you can see now, and I'm just going to be sewing this cup across in a circular motion, ensuring that even the center point also properly aligns with the center point of the corset. So we're done with that. We're going to proceed to the other part now and then sew this part as well downwards. And our cup is ready. So after doing this now, I'm now going to join the front and the back together, bearing in mind my measurement. After all the allowances that I left for the bust area, the waist area, and the hip area, what I now did was to take out 4 inches away from the bust area, which was the excess that I got eventually. And because I did an inside closing method, for the waist part I took out 3 inches, and then for the hip part I took out 1 inch when joining this eventually. So this is what led to the point where we have our full outfit. You can also, when you're trying to now do your finishing, your final joining, you just ensure that the parts that you take out properly aligns with your total measurements, bearing in mind the bust measurement you're using for the model, or if this is going to be a dress that you make for yourself. From that waist point, see how I'm sewing is I'm making a sharp turn, not a curved turn. I'm making a sharp turn towards where my hip line stops. and that would give us that standing effect. So I'm going to also sew this for the other side. I took out 4 inches for the bust side, which was the excess that I got after calculating my bust measurement, and also making sure that, I mean, that curve that you can see that goes from the waistline downwards towards the hip line also aligns. Make sure that you place it so that when you flip over, the boning pipe or the boning case, it's aligning properly in the front and at the back. And there you have it. So I'm now going to join my my lining. I'm going to place my lining on this after trimming out the excess that I have on the sides. Also, what I did was also open this up on the ironing table before joining together with the lining, and that's where that's what works properly. So we're going to also do the same thing now for the lining. Do the same process. Close up the cup area. I don't need to put the bra cup inside this because this is the lining. So I'm going to join the first cup side and the second cup side, and I'm going to now place this on the fabric. So after sewing this, I also trimmed out the excess from the sides, and what I also did was to nudge that sharp turn so that when I place on the ironing table, it's easy to open up. So I nudged on the left and on the right. I also did this for the main fabric as well. Opened it up to the sewing points just by that sharp turn, and went to the ironing table now to open up all of the parts that has been sewn. So this is what I did. I flapped opened it up on both sides so that it's easy. It's going to slip properly when this meets the lining. I'm also going to do this process for the lining material now. So I flipped open and then I ironed this out. So let's go back to the sewing machine to join the lining with the main fabric, and that's what I'm doing now. So I'm just going to sew this across the lining. I've also pinned down with my bobbin pin so that everything is as equal as possible. So we're done joining the lining with the main fabric. Now I'm just going to flip over now so that we can see what this looks like. We'll go again to the ironing board now to iron out this part. So let's go to the ironing board. So we've gone to the ironing board now to iron out all the joining so it flattens out across all parts of the fabric. So the parts that was joined. So you have to be careful also not to burn the fabric or the boning case. As you can see, everything is aligning properly. So now I'm just going to place or cut my boning stick to align properly with the length. I made sure that I had 1/2 inch allowance away from the tip of the corset. I placed it inside the wrapper, or you could use a piece of fabric. You place it inside the wrapper, flip it over and iron it out so that the boning stick can straighten out. If not, when you don't do this method, it will just curve. It will have this circular shape on the body. So first off, you measure it, taking a 1.5 inch allowance from the tip. You burn the edges with the lighter. You place in the wrapper, turn it over and iron it out with the steam iron to ensure that the boning stick flattens out and you can have a perfect finishing. So try this out method and let me know if it works for you. I'm also ensuring that in while cutting, I've left 1.5 inches sewing allowance from the tip, so that when I turn this in, I don't have any bony stick disturbing me when I'm closing the tip of this fabric. So I'm done now. I'm back on the sewing machine and I'm just going to be closing the tip of this corset. So I've closed it now. I now picked the piece of the fabric that I'm going to use to turn this in. So I flipped the fabric over, placed the piece of material. It's about 1 or 2 inches wide. I sewed it on the tip of the corset, following the lines or following the pattern. Then I'll flip over now and then also turn this in. In flipping over, I made sure that I left 1/2 inch allowance or 1/2 inch sewing, so that the tip of the material that I used to close the tip of this corset shows. So you would see, if you can remember at the beginning of this video, you saw the tip of the corset had like a black shiny lining. So I made use of a shiny fabric, so it just adds beauty to the corset. What I'm doing now is to sew the corset covering, I mean the piece of material that stays at my back, before the corset rope is passed across the corset rings. This is what our corset looks like. Our corset is finished. I'm going to place this at the I'm going to use the garment machine now to place my corset rings. I'm going to show you how to do this. So I made use of 1 inch spacing allowance for the corset rings. At the end of the day, I made use of 11 pairs, that's 22 corset rings to lace or to create my lacing holes. So I made use of my pointy scissors to puncture the holes across the part that I'll be passing the corset rings in, and then place the corset ring in the garment machine, and then place the final ring to close this up. So I'm going to be showing you how to fix the corset rings in your fabric. So I picked up my scissors to puncture the hole, and then after puncturing the hole, I placed it now in the garment machine. So some persons use their soldering iron. Me, I make use of my scissors because I don't want to ruin my fabric just in case I make a mistake. So I've placed this now. You're going to flip over, so the right side is going to be facing downwards, and you're going to place inside the machine, and then pick that tiny part, the right side, locate the right side, and then you just press it open or press it down, press the lever down, and then you have your corset rings ready. So I'm going to do this for the remaining part of the holes that we have, or the markings that we have, so we can have our corset rings complete. So let's just proceed with imputing the corset rings. So my camera had stopped and I was not able to record the part where I joined the skirts. I just had this footage when I ironed the skirt, but then the skirt is simple. It's just a normal pencil skirt. Perhaps I'll do a tutorial on how to sew a simple straight skirt or pencil skirt. So the blouse that you had seen at the beginning is, I made use of the pleated organza fabric. The shoulder, I had used the brown paper to join the shoulder by 15 inches on both sides. So I'm doing the bottom part now, and I'm working with 40 inches, so 20 inches for the front and 20 inches for the back, so that pleats together, and that's what I'm doing now. So I'm joining the first part. The brown paper is 20 inches long, and I'm also going to be doing that so that when I wear it, it's easy to be worn. If you also notice, the gathers is much or more at the end of the fabric rather than the center of the fabric. It's a pattern I choose to use for joining this together. I'd also joined the neck with my bias. I joined the shoulder as well with my bias. I didn't weave any part of this fabric. All I did was to close it with the bias. So I'm removing the paper tape or the brown paper from the sewing, and I will now be flipping over the tip of this sewing that I've done now and to join together. So I'm flipping over the shoulder part. I didn't use a bias to join the shoulder. I just flipped the material over. I'm using 1/2 inch measurement and also 1/2 inch measurement for the waistline, which I just used the brown paper for. So I didn't use the bias for that part. The part that I used the bias for was for the neck area and the shoulder area. So I'm joining the sleeves part for this blouse, and when I'm done, I'm going to sew through the waist area. Now flip over by 1/2 inch and just sew through all the way for the front and for the back. And when I'm done, I'm just going to join together by 1/2 inch. I mean flipped over 1/2 inch, so that when I turn it to the right side, there's so much space in the opening, and it's easy to be worn. So as you can see what I'm doing now, I'm doing the I'm closing the tip of the other part. I've closed the tip for the first part, I'm closing the tip for the other part. If you don't understand, you can just leave me a comment in the comment section and I'll just take your questions. So we're done now, and like I said, I'm just going to flip together and just join by 1/2 inch. As you can see now, I flip to the other side and join by 1/2 inch. So when I turn it over, there's so much volume at the opening. There's so much space rather at the opening, and it's easy to be worn. And we have our blouse. Our blouse is ready. So now let me show you what the blouse looks like with the skirt. So this is it. This is what the blouse looks like without the corset on it. I'm going to show you another picture of what this looks like. And there is our blouse. So now let me take you through what this looks like. I mean the complete look. Isn't this lovely? Like I always say in my words, voila, here you have it. This is the 3-part corset, bas corset. If you have any questions for me, you can leave them down below in the comment section. You can wear this just as the blouse and the skirt, or the corset and the skirt, or the way you have it like this, all 3 outfits or attires together. I'm going to be showing you pictures of what this outfit turned out to look like when I eventually wore it to the wedding that I went to. If you haven't subscribed, now is the time for you to click on that subscribe button and subscribe to this channel. I hope this video was as enlightening as possible. If you have any questions for me, you can leave them down below in the comment section. I have other tutorial videos that you can learn from, so go through my page and watch. From me to you, it's bye bye. Keep creating magic.